Quark can't pronounce legendary Klingon battles. We see 3 familiar faces, kind of. And Dax is going to be in the doghouse for the next couple weeks. Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 2, Episode 19, Blood Oath, a really good one, directed by Weinrich Colby. How are you today, Cirroc?
Doing all right.
Nice.
Doing all right. Yeah, Blood Oath.
Nice.
This is our first Klingon episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and quick note, Cirroc is battling a little cold, so shout out to Cirroc for braving the elements. I'm myself am battling laziness, so shout out to me for hanging in there too.
No, really. You're still recovering from broken ribs, which is it's a big deal. So
that's true. Those of you at home, I've got 5 broken ribs. So when Cirroc was saying he had a cold, I couldn't help but say, like, better you than me, because sneezing when you have broken ribs it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Anyway, but seriously, thanks for toughing it out for us, Cirroc. I know you're not feeling great. But let's do it.
Let's do it.
This was a fun one, yeah?
It was, and it's funny because when I first saw these Klingons come on and watching their outfits, with their really animal hair and these very elaborate, like, huge outfits, it made me think of Game of Thrones. Because a lot of the Game of Thrones characters wear these really elaborate, like, huge animal pieces, and I guess the Klingons are like a page out of that same kind of era.
Right. Do you kind of get that impression of the Klingons being kind of retro? Like a few hundred years. I mean, they have some derivatives of, like, the old samurai, culture. And you're right, with, like, the animal pelts and things like that. They kind of seem almost barbaric.
Almost barbaric, and it has that same feel to it, because they're always holding their big mugs and celebrating and having feasts, and it's a lot like the same kind of period piece of the Game of Thrones type thing, right? The future version of that same kind of concept, with their bat lifts kind of the same as carrying your swords around, right? So they really live and die by their sword. They wear these big husky outfits, which I thought to myself watching this. Yeah, husky. I thought to myself watching this, I said, wow, it must be uncomfortable to have to do all the stunt scenes and the fighting scenes wearing all that headpiece, for example, which I know is very heavy and hot. And then all those layers of clothing that bulk you up and make you look larger than life. So just to move around in that and be swinging that lift around and fighting and throwing people on the floor, I just can imagine how difficult it is to get done.
It's interesting that you bring up the barbaric kind of nature of the Klingons, or the fact that they kind of seem almost like Game of Thrones style, because I got a similar impression when I was watching this episode, in that when I was watching the 3 Klingons, and they all had K names, like the Kardashians, and they all wore the same kind of makeup, and they were very similar, in a lot of ways. I realized, and then you realize that they had to really, differentiate between the personalities. Like, this is the drunk one, this is the focused one, this is the old and dying one, or whatever. It harkened back to The Hobbit for me, because in The Hobbit there are, like, what is it, 13 dwarves, right? And so 13 dwarves, they had to figure out a way for us to be able to differentiate between 13 frickin' dwarves that look fairly similar. So I definitely felt that similar kind of fantasy kind of, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones kind of feel, but somewhat for a different reason. I thought they did a great job. I thought the actors, really were great. I thought it worked well, all of it.
I agree. And one of the things that really differentiated them was their personalities. That was one of the things that stood out. And I like the fact that you did get so much variety from what we got to see. So they were very different from each other. Right.
Right. Right. And so the episode opens off with it's always gonna be fun when the episode opens off with Quark and Odo. There's gonna be some kind of frenemy.
Right.
Either Odo's throwing him in the brig or they're having some kind of battle of wits. And the first thing Quark says, he's like, he's out there fighting the battle of Lach, or whatever that was. And of course, Odo, being the Klingon nerd that he is, knows immediately you mean the battle of fucking whatever, But
yeah,
that was great. I in my notes I put the battle of KS BH DDJ BK or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because the Klingons do have a legitimate language, and there are a lot of people that go out and study and really practice it and actually speak it. So I hear what Quark hears when I hear Klingon. I hear jumper jumper rag rag rag, and they actually they're actually saying something which I got to learn firsthand by meeting a lot of the fans that have studied Klingon and speak Klingon, and how serious they take it. And they have these groups, and they all go out drinking together and cheersing, which I got to see firsthand by hanging out with Mr. JG, the great JG.
Nice.
And being around him and inside, he let me get inside of some of their inner circle of Klingon celebration post conventions, and really got a chance to see how serious the fans are that really like the Klingons. How much, how serious and how far they're willing to go in order to show their love for it.
I'm glad you brought that up. Shout out to J.G. Hertzler, who, by the way, was our very first guest on the show, like episode 3 or something for us, 3 or 4. But he was also, J.G. I don't think he and Robert O'Reilly, I don't think they're two people that have embraced the Klingon culture, as actors more than those two, right? I mean,
no.
They're great guys, tons of fun, and they're not the kind of guys that go to a convention and be like, "Oh, leave me! I'm not a Klingon. Leave me alone. That was just a part I played." Whatever. They're just like, "Yep, I'm a Klingon. Come and get it. Let's be Klingons together."
Absolutely, and they're really fun about it. Sometimes they dress up wearing the outfits. They really interact with the fans. They're out there. Like I said, celebrating and drinking in the lobby and toasting and just, being Klingons to the full extent of the performance. So I really love JG and Robert O'Reilly for what they bring to the table. They have been awesome.
Have you ever seen their Klingon karaoke at Star Trek Las Vegas?
I have seen a little bit of it.
Loads of fun.
Yeah, those guys are loads of fun. Like I said, I've had the pleasure and honor and privilege to be around them at various conventions around the world. And those guys celebrate and party as hard as anybody as I can think of.
Like Klingons, right?
They like Klingons and really good guys, because they really do enjoy having fun and just, celebrating with the fans. There's some of the best actors that have really dedicated their time to giving back to the fans and being available at conventions. And I really enjoy the experience that they give the fans and that they bring day in and day out. So they've really carried on the tradition and worn the Klingon lifestyle and traditions and carried those way after the show has gone off. So
everybody listening in that may not know who those actors play, I know probably everybody does, but that's Martok and Gowron are the two Klingons that they play from Deep Space Nine. And yeah, just to close up what you initially brought up, you're right that the Klingon language is a fully fleshed out and language. It is recognized. It is completed. It is known. It's kind of like J.R.R. Tolkien and Elvish. Like they wrote the whole thing out, and I'm sure Star Trek has a lot. I'm sure there's also Vulcan. By now, with Picard out, they probably have Romulan mapped out at the very least.
Yeah, so that's why you can't really fake it, because there are people out there that will be fact checking and spell checking and correcting your words. So it's not something you can just haphazardly throw out there. You really have to be on point when speaking the Klingon language. But in this particular episode, we get a little bit of background about Dax, and one thing we have seen with Dax's character is how she has been she's been a bridge to Sisko and Sisko's past. She's a bridge to the Ferengi and their cultures, their quirks and little, cultural things that they have.
Right.
We see her playing, gambling with the Ferengi and being like one of the guys. And now we see her backstory into the Klingon world, right? And how much of a connection she has. So I think those are all very admirable things.
That's a good point. That really goes deeper into the angle that she's lived, 6 or 7 lives. I think this is her 7th life. And so being that she's had all these lives, she's experienced all these different cultures. And at this point, she's like a chameleon. She can be a Ferengi amongst the Ferengi. She can be a Klingon amongst the Klingon. She can be a human amongst the humans because she's a Trill. That's a really good point. That they're really trying to show what a chameleon she is and how much she embraces all of the other races. And I didn't mean to rhyme there, but it worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
So Quark says he said he'd kill me if I shut it off, with reference to the holodeck thing. Just to finish up on that, and there's that. Of course, they can't do a Quark and Odo scene without a little bit of banter. And of course, Quark says he said he'd kill me if I shut it off, and Odo goes, "Oh." I don't know. He's like, like, ooh, wouldn't that be a tragedy?
Yeah, well, he said he'll kill you,
Yeah.
He didn't say he'd kill me, so I think you go ahead and shut it off. They opened it with that right away, which I thought was, a way to get us into the story. It started off the introduction, They went into a little bit of where Quark got the holosuite programmed for this Bat'leth showdown, right?
Uh-huh.
And Quark reveals, I got bought it off some Klingon or something to that extent. Just let me know how he's always delving in the black market, trying to improve his business. But they did introduce us into the characters and really go into this a lot of things about promises that we keep and promises made that we make, right? I think that was one of the main underlying themes of this is the past life of Dax, which we've now started to really get into. And I would like to say that I believe that this is I feel one of the strongest performances for Dax's character.
Mm-hmm.
She really did a really good job at holding herself in this, and I liked the way she approached this particular episode. So I want to say I really thought her performance stood out in several different instances.
Shout out to a friend of the show, Terry Farrell,
Absolutely,
for knocking this one out of the park, which was important because this was a very Dax-centric episode. It was about Klingons and it was about Dax. I mean, that's really it, It was cover the 3 Klingons and then the albino Klingon, and it covered Dax, and everybody else was kind of in the background. I don't even think we saw O'Brien or Bashir in the episode, did we?
I don't recall seeing either one of them. I know we did see O'Brien.
Yeah, I'm sure we didn't see O'Brien, and I can't remember if we saw Bashir maybe for a scene or something. Uh, but moving on past that, so Dax sees her old friend Kor. Kor is
Yeah.
Kor was the drunk guy, and he's drunk off of Bristanti ale, which is something I hadn't heard of before, but they mentioned it here.
Yeah, I noticed that. Velocity,
Mhm.
Spumante, Bristanti.
Yeah, whatever it was. I'd never heard of it, but that's what it was, Bristanti ale. So Kor was good. The actor that played Kor was good because he did his, even when he didn't have a line, he would do like a grunt or a scoff or something like that. And we're introduced to Koloth and Kang and all these guys. Did you have a favorite of the three Klingons?
Well, they all kind of. I like them for different reasons. Um, the drunk Klingon, which I'm not sure which one that was, but
Kor. Oh, Kor, you got a good nickname for him.
Yeah, what was my name?
You called him Kor's Light.
Yeah, Coors Light. I liked him because he was the first one to kind of recognize Dax, so we needed him to establish that he understood that Dax was, had a past life and that they were friends in that past life. And it didn't take much convincing on his behalf. Like, he was right away into it. And I liked the looseness of his character. He was more, easygoing. He was about the ladies. He was about drinking. There was a line where he called out Quark one time. He called him a devious little heady, and I couldn't follow what the rest of it was. But he said, "Quark, you devious little heady," and I forgot what I couldn't.
Hedgehog or something. There was a line that he said to Dax that I thought was clever writing. Was when when he's flirting with two ladies at the bar, and Dax interrupts him, and she says, "Well, she says she needs to talk to him, and they need to go away for a minute."
Yeah.
And his quote is, "Well, you certainly don't share Curzon's priorities."
Yeah, exactly, because there's no way he missed this opportunity.
Yeah,
with these
Curzon's priorities are different.
Yeah, and by the way, just a little shout out since we're talking about that particular scene. The two ladies that were on either side of Kor, I thought were really well done. One, I paid attention to her makeup. She had this gold eyeshadow that looked great, but every time she looked down, it was just radiantly gold, and I really thought makeup did an awesome job with that. And the girl on his left, on the other side, our right, was wearing this beautiful, colorful outfit that looked just remarkably stitched together, very fine in detail. And shout out to wardrobe on that one. So the two ladies were well done and looked fabulous. So I just wanted to slide that in there.
That's funny. You've always got an eye to notice all these cool things. In that scene, you know what I noticed about those ladies? Like, I don't remember anything about what they look like in any way. All I remember is thinking, they didn't get any lines, but I wonder how they were kind of like picked out, if they auditioned or, like that's what I just thought. I was just like, oh, they didn't have any, because I'm watching this thing and then he has them go away. And after they went away, I was like, they didn't even get any line. They didn't even get to go like, thank you, or okay, we'll be right back or anything,
Yeah, it happens. But they did get a lot of camera time. They were on the camera for a while. They were part of his close up, his shot. Mm-hmm. And they were noticeable. Like I said, what stood out to me was the makeup on one and the wardrobe on the other. And just a little. They're essentially very passerbys in the scene, but yet there still has to be that kind of a detail paid to what they're wearing, their makeup, their hair, and
Well, that was one of the main hidden treasures of Deep Space Nine. I always thought was that every episode, there was going to be at least one scene in Quark's bar. And so you're going to see crazy aliens. You're going to see cool prosthetics and masks. You're going to see elaborate costumes. You're going to see cool stuff. One of the coolest things about watching Deep Space Nine is just looking in the background and seeing like these tall aliens or short aliens or groups of aliens and monsters and weirdos walking around. I mean, that's like one of the gems of Deep Space Nine, I always thought. But yeah, moving on to there was also a line that he says, Kang, he said, you know, when he was like lamenting the old days of the Empire, he's saying like, oh, back in the old days, people used to be afraid of the Klingon Empire. People used to fear us, right?
Right.
And he says now Klingons open up a restaurant and feed the grandchildren of the people we slaughtered or the people we should have slaughtered or something like that. So that's a reference to our guy.
To our accordion.
That's the
opera
guy.
Singer. Yeah, shout out to him. Actually, I could have brought him up in our free-for-all from favorite Klingon. he could have been an honorable mention.
You're right. Good point.
But there were really several themes that I thought they were really trying to tackle in this one. And one of the biggest ones is really just like killing somebody, right? And having a reason to do it. And you see a side of Dax that I really haven't seen so far, where she's like willing to go all out to get this done because this is like a revenge moment for her, right? This is like it's like a promise / revenge moment, and she feels as if in order to really be true to herself, she has to carry this out. Otherwise, she feels like she's disappointing herself, right?
Or letting down the memory of Curzon, who still lives inside of her. Yeah.
Right. So they really go deep into talking about life or death and the kind of thought process with having to battle that, which I thought was great when she reaches out to Kira and basically wants to have this difficult conversation with Kira about when is it all right to kill somebody? How many people have you killed? What was it like?
Yes, that was a really good one. Really good scene that we should discuss. We got to go hit our break in just a second here, though. But I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about just like you're right, the magnitude, the theme of actually killing somebody, not in self-defense, but going out
premeditated, right?
Starfleet officer going out and assassinating somebody, basically, you know?
Right.
So right before we go, I think there was only one trivioid that didn't make the cut, and that was Odo deals with another Klingon afternoon. And I don't know if you remember when he says, he's like, oh, just another Klingon afternoon. And she says, what's that? He says, anytime Klingons are around, it's a Klingon afternoon.
It's a Klingon afternoon.
So we feel his pain there.
Yeah. He had a lot of eye rolling in this episode. He was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's our Odo.
That's our Odo.
Anyway, all right. So we'll take a quick, super fast, back in a flash break, and we'll be right back with the seventh rule.